Okay, if members could resume their seat, please. We move on now to questions to the Assembly Commission. Question number 8 has been withdrawn, and I call Mr Justin McNulty.
Question number 1.
Mr Trevor Clark.
Can I thank the member for this question? And Mr Principal Deputy Speaker, I may need additional time for this answer. The fact that the Assembly is increasingly made up of members with a diverse range of backgrounds which reflect our wider society is entirely a good thing, and the Assembly Commission is very supportive of finding ways to support members who have young families. Many of the obvious ways in which members might be supported on this issue of parental leave are not within the responsibilities of the Commission. For instance, any proposal to allow a replacement minister to be put in place to cover for a period of parental leave would require a change to the 1998 Act, which is outside the remit of the Assembly Commission. Neither can the Assembly Commission introduce any aspect of financial support that would be paid to a member as a result of parental leave, as the Assembly Commission has no role in determining the salaries or pensions that are paid to members. However, the Assembly Commission does have the ability to provide additional support to a member who is absent due to parental leave to carry out the constituency work that the member would have otherwise have undertaken. Additional support could be made available through assist with constituency work through and increasing the staff costs which are made available to the member. Any such change to facilitate paid support for members on the parental leave could be made by the Assembly Commission through the publication of a revised determination. At its meeting on the 8th of July 2021, members agreed that the draft provisions to be included in a new determination should be prepared for an agreement prior to the end of the current mandate, but any new determination would only be published alongside the progress of the Assembly members' remuneration bill in the next mandate. The Assembly Commission therefore intends to return to this matter at the next Assembly mandate.
Mr McNulty.
I thank the member for his answer thus far. There's not enough joy in this place. This is the season to be joyful. It's the season to be thankful. And I think it's important to pass my congratulations, massive coharges to my Assembly colleague Jerry Carroll on the arrival of his son just 2 weeks ago, his first child. And knowing how that feels, having a child just 7 months ago myself, I think we all should give more thanks and have more joy in this place and recognise the important roles we all play and recognise how lucky we are in the roles we play representing our constituents. Be very thankful for that, because so many people out there are struggling. So many people out there don't have I'm getting there. So, what measures are likely to be included in any determination?
The member will be aware that provision already exists within the determination to provide for replacement cover for a member's employee who is off work due to maternity. In reviewing the determination at the start of the next mandate, the Commission will consider providing members with additional support staff costs for the recruitment of an extra member of staff to cover constituency duties while a member is on parental leave.
Ms Ciara Ferguson.
Thank you for your answer so far, but while we understand that COVID obviously has impacted on your considerations, as it did on so many others and other aspects of life, can the Commission commit to pursuing this additional work as quickly as possible?
I think, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker, as previously indicated, the Commission has considered this at length and have made a commitment to consider this at the start of the next mandate, considering the business that's in front of them currently.
Thank you. No other members rising on this issue, so if we can bring up spotlight for Ms Sinead Bradley to ask her question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Question 2.
Mr Clark.
Can I thank the member for her question? The COVID-19 pandemic has presented many challenges to the Assembly Commission and has impacted on our ability to deliver and support Assembly business in a rapidly changing public health environment. The past 18 months has been extremely challenging for the Assembly's IS office team. During this time, the IS office have had to review on how a range of services could be delivered during the pandemic and implement innovative changes to successfully facilitate the work of the Assembly. This has enabled all members and staff to work remotely from home and other locations. In response to the increased demands of the Assembly's IT network, the Assembly Commission has provided additional capacity for secure remote connections and has supported the use of a range of video conferencing tools, including Microsoft Teams, Zoom and Starleaf. In recognising and responding to the deficiencies in the Parliament building's Wi-Fi service, the Assembly Commission has provided all members with webcams in their offices, and the Commission is undertaking a review of the Wi-Fi network. The pandemic has also had a significant surge on our user support requirements, and the IS Office has worked hard to address these on a timely basis. Assembly users are asked to submit inquiries to the IT service desk via email, and the IS Office team consistently monitors these email accounts during working hours and responds to inquiries as quickly as possible. The current arrangements are working well, however, the IS Office will keep this under review.
Ms Bradley for supplementary.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you to the member for the reply. And I also want to put on record my thanks to the IAS office, who picked up on my plight via the question and very swiftly did engage and resolve many of the IT issues that had occurred in my office. But the member quite rightly refers to the Wi-Fi system within the building. It's certainly not fit for purpose. And I give an example. Yesterday I attempted from the third floor to put a question to the Minister for Education. I struggled to hear either the Speaker or the Minister, and thankfully I was heard, but it certainly wasn't smooth, and I would welcome any improvement to the Wi-Fi. But I wonder, could the member give me an indication as to when that issue might be resolved? And I think I speak for most members when I ask that question. Thank you.
Can I thank the member for participating from our home network today, and can I thank the member for a supplementary question, Mr Speaker? But I'm conscious that there's a number of listed questions from the members on Wi-Fi network, which my Assembly Commission colleague is due to answer. Therefore, would it be appropriate for the member to address this supplementary question at that point?
Ms Liz Kimmins.
Has the Commission considered using the time when the Assembly won't be sitting prior to the next election to ensure that our IT systems are fit for purpose?
I think that would be reasonable for the Assembly Commission to consider at some of their future meetings, and I'll take that back.
Ms Aisling Riley.
I'll ask you on question number three.
And this will be answered by Mrs Dolores Kelly.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker, and I thank the member for her question. As the member will know, strengthening engagement with the public, including schools and community organisations, is one of the Assembly Commission's 4 corporate aims, and in the past a great deal of that engagement has taken place in Parliament buildings. However, because of the public health situation and associated regulations and guidance, Parliament Buildings was closed to the public from the 18th of March 2020 until the 14th of July 2021, and therefore no engagement activity was possible in the building during that period. Since the reopening, however, of the Parliament Buildings to the public in July, some engagement activity and events, including with schools and community organisations, have indeed taken place in the building. However, the demand for engagement activity and events in Parliament Buildings is currently low by historical standards, and our capacity to host such engagement activity and events is greatly reduced because of the need to adhere to the public health regulations and guidance, in particular social distancing. We are, however, proactively seeking to increase our engagement with schools and community organisations in other ways, notably through virtual events. And for example, since October 2020, 138 schools and 4,400 pupils have taken part in a virtual education programme delivered by the Assembly's Education Service. And in addition, over 80 schools have taken part this year in committee consultations on issues such as the Bill of Rights for Northern Ireland, the impact of school lockdown on young people and climate change. Also, over 1,000 representatives from the community and voluntary sector have taken part in 62 engagement programmes delivered virtually by the Assembly's engagement team, and I'm sure members will want to join with me in paying tribute to the team who were swift and very adept at meeting those needs. So let me assure you we are absolutely committed to improving engagement.
Ms Riley for a supplementary.
I thank the member for her answer. And can I ask, has the Commission spoken with the Department of Finance to ensure that the safe return and continuation of sporting events within the grounds of Parliament buildings?
Thank the member for her question. That's not something I believe that has been before us as a Commission, but it is something that I'm happy to take back to the next meeting of the Commission.
Mr. Chris Little.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. Could I ask the member to give an update on the work of the Northern Ireland Youth Assembly to give space, voice, audience and influence to young people in this place and to give force to children's right to participate in decision making? Thank you.
I thank the member for his question, and he will be aware that the Assembly Youth Parliament met recently on a Saturday, and it was a very enthusiastic debating day and opportunity for many young people. Obviously, as elected representatives, members in their own right will obviously engage with schools throughout their constituency and with many of the youth organisations. But the Assembly Commission and indeed the Speaker has committed to the Youth Parliament, and we will want to hear more from the Youth Parliament and look forward to the feedback at the next Commission meeting from the Speaker. We would hope that as the health situation improves and there is a reduction of restrictions and guidance, that we might have more opportunity, I think, for roundtable discussions as opposed to Zoom. While Zoom and virtual classrooms and debates have their place and are very useful at this time, there's nothing beats the opportunity to build relationships and networking with young people and getting to meet them and getting to know them on a face-to-face basis.
No other members indicating to me on this question? Nope. Mr. William Urban.
Question number 4, sorry.
And that will be answered by Mr. Robbie Butler.
Speaker, Principal Deputy Speaker, I can thank the member for their question. Over recent years, the Assembly Commission has implemented a range of measures to improve the environmental performance of Parliament buildings, including the introduction of rainwater collection, photovoltaic panels and solar thermal tubes, all of which were installed as part of the roof refurbishment project. The heating boilers were also replaced with energy-efficient gas boilers at that time. Subsequent to that, we also made modifications and improvements to the building's energy management system, known as BEMS, B-E-M-S, and have been replacing light bulbs with more energy-efficient LED lamps, and installing hippos in toilets to reduce the amount of water used to flush, but they're not the type of hippos, I think, that we're used to, or else they're very small. The Assembly Commission utilises the Department of Finance's framework agreement for the supply of electricity, through which the Assembly is provided with 100% renewable and carbon-neutral electricity. We had previously installed 2 double electric vehicle charging points at the rear of Parliament buildings and are currently working with the Estate Management Unit to see whether additional points might be installed in the Lower East car park. We also replaced the old building floodlighting system with the new energy-efficient programmable LED floodlighting system and reviewed the time schedules for all of the external lighting that we have control of. The IS office is currently leading on a project that will see the replacement of the old TVs in the building. This will have a significant impact on our energy use, as the new TVs will be much more energy efficient than the existing ones. And we will also have the facility to turn off all the screens in the corridors and public areas centrally. The Sustainable Development Office works closely. The Sustainable Development Office, an officer, works closely with the Department of Finance and other partners to utilise energy-saving solutions where possible, and will continue to improve the building energy controls and metering systems to help ensure continuous improvement in our energy usage.
Mr. Urban.
Thank the member for his response. I'm sure the member will agree with me that it's important that the Parliament buildings does lead the way in relation to green energy. I asked the member, is he aware, does the building still use oil for heating, the main heating of the building?
I thank the member for his answer. I believe it's 2 gas boilers that are currently used to heat the building and replace the oil heating.
Ms Ennis isn't with us. If we move on then to... actually, Mr Blair, you've managed to dodge a question. If we can move on then to Mrs Deborah Erskine. And that will be answered by Mrs Dolores Kelly.
Mr Principal Deputy Speaker, and I thank the member for her question. Over the last 3 years, the Assembly Commission has received a limited number of requests for services for people who are blind, partially sighted and/or hearing impaired. And during the current mandate, interpreters have been used once in this chamber in 2020 in relation to a sign language bill. Sign language interpretation was also provided for a meeting of the Committee for Communities earlier this year. Also, sign language interpreters were provided for the Pensioners' Parliament, held in September 2021, and for the Disabled People's Parliament, held only a few days ago. Easy-to-read order papers and indicative timings were also provided for this event, and additional staff were on hand to assist virtually impaired participants and people using guide dogs. Sign language interpretation was also provided for a play, Shrieking Sisters, hosted by the Commission on International Women's Day in 2018. In 2018, tours of the Assembly were conducted for people with physical and sensory disabilities on International Day for People with a Disability. Training events for the blind or partially sighted on how to engage in the proceedings of the Assembly were also facilitated by Commission officials under the auspices of RNIB in May of this year. The Commission also recently approved a pilot for sign language interpretation of question time to the First and Deputy First Ministers, and I hope the member will agree with me that this is a very welcome initiative which will commence on the 13th of December. I also want to add, Assembly officials will always wish to support requests from people with a disability to ensure as full and as inclusive participation as possible.
Mrs Erskine.
I want to thank the member for her answers there. I wholeheartedly welcome the announcement that the Executive Office question time will be now with sign language. And I hope that more can be rolled out. And has it been discussed, and will the Assembly Commission commit to rolling this further out across the Northern Ireland Assembly business after the pilot finishes in March 2022?
Principal Deputy Speaker, and the member will be hopefully relieved to know that the Commission recently discussed additional measures and indeed and has a current survey in terms of Disability Act or action plan for the Assembly itself. And we are always committed to ensuring that the proceedings of the Assembly and Parliament buildings are accessible to all. And to that end, as I said, the draft Disability Action Plan, which runs 21 to 25, sets out how the Commission intends to promote positive attitudes towards disabled people and to encourage participation by disabled persons in public life under a number of themes and actions. We also recently approved a pilot for sign language of interpretation at question time of the First and Deputy First Minister, and as I said, will begin on the 13th of December. We are involved in ongoing discussion with representatives of the deaf and hard of hearing community to explore other ways in which the Assembly Commission can deliver services to that community.
Ms Orlea Flynn.
I'll ask Concollia, and the member just touched on some of the issues that I was going to ask, but the question was more specifically if there's any steps the Commission are taking so physically to increase accessibility for those that are blind, partially sighted, or for members of society who have hearing difficulties as well. If there's any steps to be taken that would make that physical accessibility a bit easier for those visitors coming to Parliament buildings. Thank you.
Principal Deputy Speaker, I welcome the members' supplementary, and members will know that we have only recently had a member of this House who was disabled for a short period of time and requiring the use of a wheelchair, and I think that pointed very clearly to what some of the work that we still need to do in terms of physical accessibility to a number of rooms and avenues. And of course, buildings of this age present their own challenges. In terms of additional braille measures that can be taken up and additional guides, if you like, that's something that will hopefully be something that will be highlighted through the Disability Action Plan survey, and we will take on board any of the recommendations which the hard of hearing and or the visually impaired community will highlight to us.
Ms Joanne Bunting.
Principal Deputy Speaker, question 7, please.
And that will be answered by Mr Trevor Clark.
Can I thank the member for their question? The Assembly Commission has had no discussions about making representations to the Minister of Finance in relation to the planting of trees as part of the Queen's Green Canopy project of her Platinum Jubilee. As the member has set out in her questions, decisions in relation to the Stormont Estate are now for the Minister of Finance to make. There is no role for the Assembly Commission in these decisions, and it would therefore be unusual for the Assembly Commission to make representations on an issue when it has no responsibility for them. I am sure the member will seek to raise these matters with the Department of Finance directly.
Ms Bunting.
Thank you, Mr Principal Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful to the member for his answer, and I will take up this very positive project with the Finance Minister. However, does the member not agree with me that the fact that the Commission has no responsibility for decision making is exactly why it can and should make representation? And moreover, does the member concur that since the centenary passed with the refusal from the Commission to light up the building, refusal to permit a commemorative stone or even plant a rose, then perhaps surely the Commission would not want to continue to create the impression that Stormont is a cold house for people of my background and that it doesn't want to prod about the place.
Okay, the member will understand that I am here today to reflect the corporate position of the Assembly Commission rather than my own views or that of my party. The Commission has to deal with the reality that there are different views within the Commission on these matters, just as there are in the wider Assembly. That said, I think the member has put her comments on record, and hopefully the Commission as a whole will reflect on those.
Ms Linda Dillon.
Would the member agree with me that this building and the wider estate needs to be a welcoming space for all and needs to be reflective of all in our society, and that we have a long way to go in order to ensure that that is the case going forward?
I think the Commission has went some way, and indeed there have some plans coming forward to try and address those things so as that it is balanced. But in relation to getting into the political argument of that, as I've said in the previous answer, I am here to represent the Commission and not my own views.
Mr Jim Allister.
Refused a centenary stone. Has this Commission no shame in respect of its barefaced disrespect for unionist interests, to the very point that now when it's asked to lobby for the planting of a tree to mark the Platinum Jubilee of Her Majesty, whose assembly this is within constitutional terms, that request draws a blank from this Commission?
I've heard what Mr Principal Deputy Speaker, I've heard what the member has said, and I've listened back to my answer. I did point out that the grounds belong to the Department of Finance. However, like the other member from East Belfast, his comments on record, and I believe the Commission should reflect on those.
Mr Chris Little.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. In addition to consideration of tree planting for the Queen's Green Canopy project, would the Commission raise with the Department of Finance partnership with Belfast City Council for the 1 million trees campaign tree planting?
I'm happy to take that back for the Commission to give that consideration.
Ms Orlea Flynn.
I'll ask Concollia question number 10, please.
And that will be answered by Mr John Blair.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker, and thank the member for their question. As members will be aware from previous question times, in February of this year, the Assembly Commission agreed a significant and strategic project to take a different approach to looking at the display of artefacts within Parliament buildings. A working group comprising of Assembly officials and Dr Raymond Phoenix took the project forward in line with a set of principles agreed by the Assembly Commission. The working group presented its report and recommendations to the Assembly Commission in October, including a framework of proposals for a revised display of items and images in Parliament buildings. The Assembly Commission is currently considering the proposals, and so members will understand that I will not want to go into detail while these discussions are underway. However, I am happy to confirm that the proposals incorporate a number of key elements, including reflecting the history of Parliament buildings, including all of the political and parliamentary institutions connected to the building, ensuring that a balance of all political traditions is reflected in the range of items and images on display, displaying a number of items which are currently either in storage or are located in areas of the building where there is no general public access, providing narrative context and reflecting different perspectives, particularly for the benefit of visitors. Also ensuring greater representation of women in images in the building. The Assembly Commission is due to consider the matter further this month. This has been a very significant piece of work, and there are now a range of very comprehensive proposals for the Assembly Commission to consider on this long-standing issue.
Thank you, and thanks very much for the answer. And I would like to say that I do very much welcome the work that has been ongoing in partnership with Dr Eamon Phoenix regarding the display of artefacts here in Parliament buildings. And I know the member probably already partially answered this in his first answer there, but does the member agree that any outcome of this work must result in an estate that's reflective of all of the people that it represents?
Principal Deputy Speaker, thank the member for that follow-up question in relation to representativeness. The issue of symbolism and the display of artefacts within Parliament buildings has been raised with the Assembly Commission a number of times since 1998, both by those who feel the symbolism of the building does not reflect all parts of the community, and by those who have asked for all of the Assembly Commission artefacts which are currently in storage to be permanently displayed. However, the Assembly Commission has previously been unable to find a way forward for a number of reasons. The review agreed by the Assembly Commission was a deliberate attempt by the Assembly Commission to try and change the conversation on these issues in order to try and move forward. I think the report of the working group has achieved that, and the Assembly Commission is considering it very seriously.
Mr. Jim Allister.
Can the Commissioner tell us, in this the centenary year of Northern Ireland, and given the vast supply of artefacts and emblems that the Commission hides away in a warehouse, how many of them were put on display during this centenary year, and how much is the Commission continuing to pay to hide away these artifacts in a huge warehouse?
Principal Deputy Speaker, I thank the member for that supplementary question. I don't have the actual figures to hand in relation to the number of issues, nor do I have in relation to the overall figures involved of the financing of this, but I'm very happy to give an assurance that we'll try to seek those pieces of information for the member and have them forwarded to him.
Mr. Chris Little.
Principal Deputy Speaker, can I ask the member if he agrees with me that the Northern Ireland Assembly own Poets' Corner that displays artwork of Ross Wilson depicting the quotes of Seamus Heaney and C.S. Lewis, both which say from Seamus Heaney, believe that a further shore is reachable from here, and C.S. Lewis, there are far better things ahead than any we leave behind, are the type of optimistic, positive artefacts that we would like to display in this Assembly, and hopefully will motivate us all in our work ahead.
Is that why you leave it on?
Principal Deputy Speaker, I want to thank the member, my colleague, for the inspirational words and the hope that they provide. If those matters are not already being considered by the Assembly Commission review, I will try my best to ensure that they are taken into consideration.
Mr. Mervyn Story. Number 11. That's to be answered by Mr. Robbie Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Principal Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the member for his question. For many years, maintenance and minor work projects relating to Parliament buildings has been undertaken using the Department of Finance's Pan-Government Framework Contract for Property Maintenance, and the Assembly Commission has to date continued that tradition. The Commission is currently undertaking a review of these services to consider if this remains the best mechanism to undertake such works and to help ensure that the framework arrangement provides a value-for-money option for this work. The scope of these services includes plant maintenance, reactive and remedial maintenance, repairs, minor works projects, and the provision of a small team of in-house operatives. All such works are required to be undertaken in a manner befitting of the listed status of Parliament buildings and without causing any unnecessary disruption to Assembly business. Senior management have considered an initial draft review that was undertaken by Building Services Branch and have requested further information to be incorporated before the review is formally submitted for their consideration. It is planned that the review will be considered by senior management in December.
Mr. Story.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Principal Speaker. Without being facetious, I have to say that the answer the member gives sounds more like a repeat of a well-known media outlet. That's the same answer that we have been given over a number of times. This issue has run on, I believe, Mr. Deputy Speaker, since 2016. When will the Commission make a decision and resolve this long-standing problem and have people respected in this building, paid appropriately, and members of staff on the rolls in this chamber?
Thank you, Mr. Principal Deputy Speaker. I think the member raises a good point, but as I've said in the previous answers, plan that the review will be considered by senior management, and there may be an answer forthcoming, perhaps in December.
That concludes questions to the Assembly Commission. Just before members take their ease, I'm sure it would be remiss of me not to join with Mr McNulty in congratulating Mr Carroll on the birth of his first child, and I'm sure all members would agree that that should be read into the record in Hansard. So if members now take their ease, we'll move on to the next item in a few moments. Thank you.